What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here for our round 4 showdown picks for this week's US Open. Gonna cover everything you need to know for Draftkings showdown contest tomorrow, whether it's the weather, our player poll projections. Gonna get you prepared for that last round. First, a review of here for round 3, which was just like round 2, another amazing day across the board. Whether it was on prize picks, where we went 4-1 for our picks today, but more importantly, hit on some of those smaller cards for 3 and 4 leg powers on prize picks. That was, of course, ended up being profitable for Showdown. Ended up having a 4x day today. Had quite a few lineups in the running to take down a GPP today. Just was a Matt Fitzpatrick short. Had plenty in the top 50 there. So one on that front. From the outright perspective, we still have John Rahm in contention, Scotty Scheffler in contention. A few of the other guys ended up falling out, but anytime you're heading into Sunday with a few guys live for that outright, a couple 6 of 6 lineups in large field GPPs with some steam as well, it's a good position to be in. So can't complain from that front. But let's go ahead and hop into the player poll, the projections here for Sunday. You can see quite a few of you already down there in chat. We got Mightiest Helmut's, who had his Minwoo Lee outright absolute prayer shot, is actually in contention. We played him in fantasy. I know you guys remember that from yesterday, but man, yeah, he had a solid round. Even par today, something like that. Ended up moving like 30, 40 spots up the leaderboard. So good for him. Obviously glad he came through from the fantasy side. We have Roger down there. What is going on? Tayshawn is on, says Capka's on the list now. It seems like, yeah, every slate, right? We're adding somebody to that list. I believe the last 6 slates for prize picks, we've had one guy miss. That's becoming a meme at this point, right? But that's why we run those 3 and 4 leg powers. To not let that apple pie shitter, shit in our bed. We don't want that to happen, right? We don't want that one loss to kill our cards. But yeah, we've added him to the list. That's for sure. We have Minwoo Lee down there. What's going on? And you said, didn't you have Capka in some of them though? Yeah, dude, he was in the 5 leg parlay, but he wasn't in all the 3 and 4 leg stuff. That's the point I'm trying to make to you, bro. That's why you don't put them in every single card. That's why we do those 3 and 4 leg parlays. If you watched until the end of the video, you would have had those to go off of. So that's kind of how I know who doesn't watch the whole video, who doesn't actually go through that whole research process I do, because that's why I talk about that stuff. That's why I go through the structure of my cards, man. So no offense to you out there, but I do have to kind of call you out there, if that's fair, right? You obviously didn't see that part of the video. So let's go ahead and hop into what we saw from today, which was actually harder than I expected. The weather wasn't really a factor. It was all the setup. A lot of the pin locations were put on the side of greens, obviously, where there was a lot of slope. And then with the other, it was a different direction in the wind. So it wasn't a harder wind. It was coming out of the north. It brought a lot of cool weather in. So you heard that on the forecast, rather than it being like 90 degrees out there, like it was for the first 3 rounds, it was closer to the 70s and 80s today. So ball wasn't traveling as far. Golf course was playing a little bit longer than what we've seen for the first 3 days. And more importantly, the rough was even harder to hack out of. When it's not super hot out there, it tends to hold a little bit more moisture, the grass that is. And anytime you have a damper rough out there, something that's not drying out, it's going to be harder to hack out of. So that's why the scoring average went up, I would assume, right? We obviously have to take a little bit of an assumption there when it comes to that scoring stuff, but that's what I saw today. If we split it by wave, scoring average was pretty consistent across the board. And in fact, a little bit lower in the afternoon. Now we have to remember the better players, the guys that are in form, are playing in the afternoon wave. So this difference, whatever it was, like 15 100ths of a stroke or something like that, a little bit less than that, 12 100ths of a stroke, probably just due to the difference in pedigree, right? The fact that the guys that were teeing off towards the afternoon wave, a little bit more skilled than the guys that were teeing off in the morning. If we take a look at the weather for tomorrow, you'll see that there's some rain in the forecast, and it's nothing drastic. When you just see the one little raindrop down here and, 1/100th of an inch of rain down there, it's just a sprinkle, right? And if we take a look at the weather forecast on weather.com, you can see it's like a 20 to 30% chance of rain for pretty much the entire day. So towards the afternoon, you might see one storm come in at one point, but it's not going to heavily impact play. So when we look over here on Windfinder, do not be dissuaded or discouraged by seeing all that rain there. If anything, it's going to rain at one point tomorrow, probably for like 15 to 20 minutes. And if it's only going to be 1/100th of each inch of rain out there, it's not going to be anything substantial. So I wouldn't expect that to impact play all that much. The wind gusts are in that 10 to 14 mile an hour range for much of the day. Kind of actually calms down a little bit towards the afternoon. You can see it's just in that like 9 to 10 mile an hour range from 2 to 3, 5 to 6, just right around 10 miles an hour of sustained winds. But I'm not sure I'm going to let that impact my modeling, right? You're talking about a 4 to 5 mile an hour difference from the morning to the afternoon wave. And we're already going to be targeting the guys towards the top of the leaderboard anyways. This is for round 4 showdown. We're talking about placement points being a huge factor when it's coming to our DraftKings lineups. And you want to lock in as many of those as we can. But we're not going to be chalk donkeys. We're going to talk through this strategy aspect of DFS here as well. Just a very standard weather draw here, right? We're not going to be just only targeting guys in the morning. We're not going to be only targeting guys in the afternoon. A slate that we can probably play a little bit more straightforward than most that we have. So go ahead and hop over to the player pool aspect now. So I'll bring that up. Let's see. We have a few guys down in chat that we can go ahead and see what's going on here. We got Mighty's Helmut's down there. He had he's +4. You got +400,000 on Minwoo Lee. Holy smokes, man. That's nuts. That is nuts. Roger says the payout shifts suck. Yeah, I agree. They did change a little bit of things there. Jack Fisher says, wouldn't mind to see either Fitz or Willie Z win. I got a feeling Rombo or Scheffler might cut him down. Yeah, that's obviously what logic would say, right? The guys that have been there before, that have that experience, more skilled players in general, probably going to take this thing down. I would tend to agree with you. You can see, actually, if I just sort this by score, that's how we're going to go through the board anyway. So let me go ahead and do that. Sort this by score, put it in ascending order. You'll see that I'm fading guys like Matt Fitzpatrick, right, that haven't been there all that much before. Keegan Bradley makes a habit out of really choking on Sundays. A few times ago was able to come through on Sunday, ended up finishing in the top 3 there, but those are the outlier for Keegan Bradley. Same thing with Adam Hadwin. I'm not really sure he's going to keep himself in it, right? He's not really used to being there. So, and we'll talk about Rory McIlroy. He continues to just gain a ton of strokes with the putter. Could not hit the broad side of a barn today. He hit 6 greens out of 18 greens. I can guarantee you that there's people in this chat that were, if they were actually able to keep the ball in the fairway, could hit more than 6 of the greens today, right? Obviously, that'd be if you were able to drop in the fairway because you have no chance of hitting the fairways out there. But for these tour pros, I mean, that was just a disgraceful performance from Rory McIlroy today. For him to even be 1 under par, I mean, he could have realistically been like 3 or 4 over, like a Colin Morikawa by the end of the day. He ended up shooting 6 over, I believe. Rory shot like 3 over par today, something along those lines. I'm going to be fading the guys that aren't striking the ball well. So obviously he comes to mind. But then another guy would be the guys that just don't have the mental capability, right? Like a Keegan Bradley, like an Adam Hadwin, at least in my opinion, guys like a Matt Fitzpatrick. So I would tend to agree with you there. I think one of those guys up top is going to hold on for it. You have Tayshaun Cooper says, oh yeah, I watched the whole video. I just go for the all-in-one flex. I would recommend doing the other stuff, guys. I mean, that if you're just going for a lottery ticket every single day, that's not how you should play Prize Picks. There's a reason why I do all those extra cards. If you're trying to actually grind out expected value and go out there and win money consistently, going after 5-leg 12.5x parlays is not how to grind out ROI. Now, if you're just looking for a lottery ticket, hope to win big once every few weeks or something like that, then go for the 5-leg parlay. But I could not recommend doing that. From an ROI perspective, it's one of the worst bets on Prize Picks. Steven says Prize Picks not available to you guys. Yeah, I know. Yeah, plus 400,000, dude. It seems like a typo, but I know it's right because he was so far behind at that point. And I remember him saying that. And I remember going like, I've seen worse things happen, but oh boy, that's a big number. But yeah, Max, he says on FanDuel, it's just based on what you do for that round. But who do you like for FanDuel? We'll go through that in the end, man. This is a DraftKings stream. So we're going to focus on DraftKings here first. Maybe we'll do that at the end if we have time. Worldwide says, what's the strategy for tomorrow? We're going to talk through that. Don't worry. We have Jack who says, what's up, brother? Say a special prayer for Minwoo Lee tonight. I think I'm going to too. If you have a 400,000 plus 400,000 number on somebody, even I want you to win that. I mean, Minwoo Lee, I like him anyways. Woozy. I watch him on Twitch all the time. He has a esports channel where he does a lot of COD and stuff like that. And he interacts with his fans. By the way, you should watch Minwoo if you're watching this right now and you're into those type of things. But yeah, I'm rooting for him too. That's for sure. He said, I read somewhere the last 6 tourneys at this course all had playoffs. It'd be pretty cool to see a 3 to 4 man Monday. Yeah, I don't think they're doing it as a full round playoff anymore. I think that was changed for the US Open. I think it's a 3-hole playoff now, at least. I'd have to double check on that. I'm pretty sure they took away the whole day, like 18-hole playoff. Pretty sure they took that away. So you have to see on that. And let's go ahead and hop into the player pool, guys. So at the top of the things, like I said, I'm focusing on the players that have been here before. So if I'm going to eat any chalk for Sunday, and anytime we have DraftKings Showdown, there's going to be a ton of chalk about the guys up top. I'm going to make sure that they have that mental capability. So for me, that's Will Zalatoris, Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler. First off, Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler have won major championships, so they've obviously proven that. But Will Zalatoris, I mean, every time this guy gets a sniff of a lead, he's putting himself in a playoff. He's finishing one shot off of a playoff, something like that for Showdown. And if he does that tomorrow, given, you're going to get 8 placement points or 10 placement points for finishing up there in the top 3, depending on where you finish. I mean, with the low scoring, expecting scoring average close to 3.5, maybe even 4 shots over par tomorrow, you're going to need those placement points up top. So I am still willing to take some of these chalky picks. He's only $9,300. He's super cheap at -4. And I have him at 36% owned, which I would argue is way too low for somebody with his value and somebody who has the track record of a Will Zalatoris. So I'm looking at right around 60-70% exposure to somebody like Willie Z. I'm not going to be in every lineup that I run, but a majority of them tomorrow. For Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm, I'm pretty much going to have one of these two in every single lineup. There's going to be maybe 10-15% of lineups where I don't play a Jon Rahm or Scotty Scheffler. And in that case, it would just be hoping that one of these guys, like a Justin Thomas, we'll talk about a few other dart throws a little bit later on, goes out there and shoots like 5-6 under par, where that's the best round by 2 or 3 strokes on the field. You might not need placement points if somebody goes out there and shoots a 64 or 63 tomorrow. And just to give you a perfect example of why that can happen, just remember Justin Rose. Where's Rosie on here? He won us a shit ton of money last Sunday. That's right. He's a little bit further back. So he's at like +5 or something like that, right? I'm blind. Swear I can't see him on here. Where's Justin Rose? All right, we'll find him. Either way, Justin Rose last weekend, right? He's at +5 right now. I'm going to be playing him this week as well. It's not for the same reason. He shot, a 60 last week on Sunday. He was relatively far back on the leaderboard. He was a little bit expensive, and nobody wanted to play him. And that was after Justin Rose was mega chalk early in the week. The reason why we went to him was because he has that putting ability. And this week, there's a few guys like that. There's a few expensive guys like a Justin Thomas that I'm getting to that I'm going to take a few shots on. Those type of lineups can hit, but for Sunday Showdown, a lot harder to, particularly when conditions are tough, right? For somebody like a JT or Justin Rose this far back to crack the optimal lineup, they're going to have to make at least 1, maybe even 2 extra birdies than the guys up top. So that's why I'm not going to go overboard on them. Guys like a JT, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, it's going to be like a 10, maybe 15% owned play for me. Majority of my lineups are going to have guys like a Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler in it, though, because even if they have a middling performance, they'll go out there, shoot something like 1 to 2 under par, make 3 to 4 birdies on the day with the extra placement points they're going to earn. That's going to outscore a majority of the field. And you just want to lock those in, particularly if you're playing in smaller field GPPs. If you're playing in the huge, $20 GPP where you're looking at 100, 150K to first, then I'm a lot more willing to take shots on guys like Justin Thomas, take shots on guys a little bit further down the leaderboard, like a Mark Leishman, for example, going to guys like a Bo Hostler that aren't going to start with many placement points, but can go out there at an extremely low ownership number and break the slate. So it depends what kind of contest you're in. I know somebody asked about the strategy aspect, but it's very much so needs to be catered to what contest you're playing in. If you're in a single entry, one of those higher dollar contests, you for sure want to be taking guys like a Jon Rahm, Will Zalatoris in your lineups. It doesn't matter if they're chalk in a contest that's not that big, because first off, don't have that much of an opportunity to duplicate yourself with other people in the field. And more than that, you don't need to beat 50, 60,000 other entries to go out there and cash big. If you're in a 200 to 1,000 entry contest, having, let's say if there's 10 optimal plays, numbers 4 through 10, something like that, not the top 4 plays, can still win you a GPP. I mean, that's just the difference in scoring level, the difference in ceiling performance that you need to take down one of these contests. So from a strategy perspective, it depends on what kind of contest you're in. I'm going to be avoiding Keegan Bradley and Adam Hadwin myself. I'm playing in the large field GPP. I expect them to be a little bit more popular than they should be. I mean, 30% on Keegan, you have 25% ownership on somebody like an Adam Hadwin. I'd much rather take shots in that mid-tier range on guys that are, first off, going to be a lot lower owned, but second off, have just as much upside. I mean, you're looking at guys at -2 where, sure, I mean, they might shoot 1, 2 under par at a max tomorrow. Whereas you have guys down here like Gary Woodland, right? Just a few shots back from that if they go out there and make just 1, 2 extra birdies over these guys at -2, could outscore them. Now, obviously, they have a little bit of a higher chance of being successful, but that's why they're 30% owned. Now, it's really an easy process here, right? If it's 30% ownership of Keegan Bradley, and let's go down here to somebody who's a good example. Let's go down here to the guys at like Sebastian Munoz, for example, right? Sebastian Munoz is 5.6% owned. It's also only $7,500. If we compare that to Keegan Bradley, who's, what is it, $400 more expensive, he is 6 times more owned. So you have to ask yourself the question, right? Is the 6, maybe 8 placement points that Keegan Bradley is going to get at a max, which is the equivalent of 1.5 birdies on DraftKings scoring, do you think that 1.5 birdies is worth 6 times more ownership than somebody down there at 5.6 ownership, like Sebastian Munoz, for example, like a Davis Riley, for example, going down here to guys maybe a little bit further, like a Thomas Peters at $6,800. Do you value that 1.5 birdie cushion that much? And the answer to me is very simple. It's no. He's not 6 times more likely to succeed in this instance. So that's why in these large field contests, I'm pivoting off of some of these chalky plays and taking shots, right? You know, if I'm going to play Keegan Bradley and try and get leverage to the field, I'm going to have to take 60% of them, just like a Will Zalatoris, just like a John Rahm or Scotty Scheffler. And those 60% of lineups, I could allocate to taking maybe 6-7 plays in the 7K range. I mean, realistically, right? We can take Sebastian Munoz, take 15 to 20% of them, get 3-4x the field there. We can also go down here, take somebody like a Thomas Peters, take a Ju Young Kim. We can get leverage on all of these plays and still have room left over with that 60%. Go down, take Bill Hostler, add Mark Leishman. We can play probably these 6 or 7 players in place of somebody like Keegan Bradley. And obviously the same exact story with an Adam Hadwin there. So just when you break it down that way, just look at it in terms of actual percentage chance of succeeding. I think it makes things a little bit simpler when it comes to your GPP process. So that's why I'm making those fades there. I don't hate the plays, though. I understand them. Maybe better for smaller field contests. So say you're playing in a 200, 300 entry contest, that sort of thing. I like guys like Keegan and Adam Hadwin a little bit more. That's why they're not down as a no, right? I don't completely hate the plays on the slate, but for large field GPPs, I think you'd be doing yourself a bit of a disservice to go out there and go way overboard on players in that range. Rory McIlroy, we kind of touched on it, but I just want to touch on it again. He was horrible today. His around the green play was dog shit. He couldn't hit a green for his life. He hit 6 greens on the day. His driver wasn't even that much better. And realistically, people are going to take a shot on Rory McIlroy. I mean, I have him at 37% ownership. Would not surprise me if he came in higher than that. Everyone, you know, obviously, if you take a look at his Sunday performances, he's had quite a few good ones. I mean, the Masters is the one that really sticks out to people where he vaulted himself up the leaderboard. But people also like to forget about his Sunday collapses, which have happened almost as frequently this year, right? So if he's going to be 40% owned starting this far back, right, I'm not willing to take shots on chalk that's super far back, right? If he's going to be a low-owned play that's starting 4 or 5 shots off the lead, I'm okay to get to that. But not somebody that's going to be one of the highest owned plays on the slate, right? I have him at 37% ownership. That is the highest owned play on the slate. I have him projected to be the chalk of the chalk. And it's just not something that I'm willing to invest in there. Sam Burns at 9,100, willing to get there. He's a little bit cheaper, and he's also a solid 15% less owned. Sam Burns has a much higher chance of getting into the optimal lineup, right? Because if you take Rory McIlroy, you can't take John Rahm, you can't take Scotty Scheffler. There's a lot of opportunity cost there. Whereas if we, take somebody like a Sam Burns, you can still play Will Zalatoris, right? You could start your lineup Will Zalatoris and then go second man in Sam Burns and have a lot of salary to work with. In fact, if you wanted to play somebody like a Matt Fitzpatrick there, which I don't for tomorrow, I mean, obviously I'd understand a lot of you out there if you wanted to because of his track record in difficult conditions. You could start with all 3 of those plays, right? You could take Will Zalatoris, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Sam Burns together and build a lineup that way. So I don't hate getting to him. Just Rory McIlroy is a completely different equation because of the price tag, also because he's still 40% owned. Joel Damon, I'm willing to get back to. Could see a bounce back performance. Shot 4 over today, so a lot of people won't want to get there. But if you saw what he did for the first 2 rounds, you'd be ecstatic. You'd be running to the window to play Joel Damon. He was number 1 in the field, both in fairways hit and greens in regulation hit, which is, a rare stat to lead in either category for somebody like a Joel Damon. But for him to be leading both of them through the first 2 rounds was outstanding. So I like him there at $7,800. Aaron Wise, another guy who needs to bounce back, didn't have the best day today. Joel Damon and Aaron Wise were fades for us when it came to Showdown, of course. The reason why I'm going back to them is everyone feels burned by them. There's a whole psychological factor where if somebody doesn't come through, you hold it against them, you put them on your ban list per se, I know we've all been there before. We've all done this before. Then you won't play somebody that makes perfect sense. There's a reason why he was chalk yesterday. He was hitting the ball beautifully. He came into the week as one of our plays, right? Joel Damon, he was one of my value picks. He's absolutely smashing for us at this point. Aaron Wise was in the player pool too. I'm willing to get back to them now, especially when other people are going to jump off ship. It's not like they've completely jumped off ship. I mean, I have 30% ownership on Joel Damon, 20% on Aaron Wise, but you'd be talking 40, maybe even 35% ownership plus on these players if they had a solid day. So I'm willing to get there. They're pieces of quote unquote chalk that I'm willing to eat in that mid-tier range. Gary Woodland loves himself US Open conditions. So it's $7,700. Could see myself getting there. Loves himself some POA greens. And we've confirmed to this point, these are true POA greens. They've gone through a lot of the upkeep process to get them out there. They're not bent grass. So keep that in mind with looking at putting stats. We have DJ. DJ had a solid day. He shot 1 over par today, which in fact was a top 15 performance in the field. Made some birdies, I believe 3 or 4 birdies on the day. Just always a high upside play, particularly when he's only $8,800. Now, yesterday, our strategy was to attack the mid tier. It was to be extremely balanced. If you guys remember, it was to take a lot of the guys in the 8K range, right? Today, it's a little bit, or I should say for tomorrow, right? We haven't gone quite there yet. It's to be a little bit more stars and scrubsy, right? It's to take Will Zalatoris. Also try to fit in somebody like a Scotty Scheffler. If I'm going to be a little bit more balanced, perhaps start my lineup with a Will Zalatoris, fading guys like a John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler. Perhaps you take Willie Z and you just take all guys in the 8K range, right? You go down here to somebody like a Dustin Johnson. Your third man in could be somebody like a Davis Riley. If you have the salary, perhaps going to a Hideki Matsuyama. While they're not getting a ton of placement points, they could still realistically have the best rounds of the slate. I mean, Hideki Matsuyama, an absolute striper. DJ, one of the streakiest players on tour. And you're looking at half, maybe even a third of the ownership on these guys that are starting further back than the guys up top. So just, that same kind of process we went through before, where you're trying to, figure out like, oh, if I take this 60% of lineups here, and rather allocating them to, a piece of chalk up top, like a Matt Fitzpatrick, what if I went and allocated them to guys like a DJ, Hideki, Davis Riley, these type of players, right? That's why I've gone off of a guy like Matt Fitzpatrick, right? I've taken those, 60, 70% of lineups and allocated down here to this mid-range. And like I said, they have a much higher chance collectively of being in the optimal lineup, that is the guys in this range, than Matt Fitzpatrick on his own. That's at least per my metrics when I'm going with. That's the thought process that I've used for quite some time when it comes to this showdown stuff. And it's been an ATM for quite some time too. We have Sebastian Munoz. Love him at +2, an extremely volatile player. He didn't do anything flashy today. I believe shot was either even par or 1 under par. But in either circumstance, not a lot of eyes on Sebastian Munoz, and the ball striking was there. So hopefully can sink a few putts, perhaps get to like 2, 3 under par. That would be more than enough to crack the optimal lineup. We got Minwoo Lee out there, so Helmuts. I know you like to see that there, but at $6,500. The reason why I like Minwoo, the reason why I'm always willing to take shots on him is he's got an electric putter. When this guy gets it rolling on the greens, he does not miss. I remember it was about a month and a half ago, he shot like 6, 7 under par on a Sunday, and it was with like 200 plus foot of putts made. So always willing to take him in Showdown. He's just a super high upside play. Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, another just guys further down the leaderboard that they're going to be nearly single digit owned. We know Jordan Spieth can get hot in a hurry, can take a place nuclear low, and Justin Thomas, the same exact thing. So just, it's a recurring theme at this point, right? And Showdown, I think you should take chances for Sunday Showdown. You shouldn't just marry yourself to going out there and getting the placement points. Thomas Peters, a bomber, somebody who's an extremely aggressive iron player. So I like getting there. Joohyung Kim, going to ride that train. He's been pretty solid to this point of the week. Got Beau Hossler, Mark Leishman, both of them aggressive players. Mark Leishman, particularly skilled at hitting out of the rough. So I always like him at these difficult tracks. Kind of similar to a Minwoo Lee, where when Mark Leishman gets things working with the putter, he does not miss like whatsoever. The guy will shoot 6, 7 under par like it's nothing. Beau Hossler, same story. Another guy who can get electric hot with that flat stick. So if I'm taking shots way down low, I mean, Beau Hossler, Mark Leishman, they're not getting top 5 placement points, right? Unless they shoot something like 6 under par tomorrow, which that's going to be a tough ask in these conditions. They're going to need to get those 5 to 6 birdies, right? It's going to be all about that birdie production. So I'm trying to make sure that they're volatile players that can actually get to that ceiling. Brooks Koepka fits that same description. I am playing him after today's performance. Justin Rose, Why not play him after what he did last Sunday? Oh boy, I'm getting a call, guys. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't mess up the stream. You guys can still hear me, right? Got a FaceTime call. Sorry about that. Justin Rose there, $8,100. Yeah, I'm getting back to it, right? He obviously was electric for us last Sunday, but that's really where I'm cutting things off. I mean, I'm taking a few guys in the 6K range, not that many shots there. I mean, Thomas Peters, going to be a relatively cheap flyer pick that I take. Minwoo Lee comes to mind there. But outside of that, you can see it's a relatively well-balanced approach, right? It's going to be taking one or two of those guys at the top of the leaderboard, pretty much whoever you expect to win for tomorrow, and then trying to mix in some of those high upside plays that you're hoping end up finishing in the top 5 of scoring. So that's really what I'm going at for Sunday. In terms of pure flyers, and this is if you're playing 150 lineups, okay? We're going to go through the flyer plays now. If you're just playing 150 lineups and you want to win all of the money tomorrow, you want to take home the $150,000 contest, that sort of thing, these are the plays that might get it done for you. Now, I'm only 20 maxing tomorrow, so just keep that in mind. Or I may 150 max. I may change my mind on that. We'll have to see. If I end up 150 maxing, these are the players that make it into my player pool, okay? Brandon Matthews, Bomber, has had an amazing season on the Corn Ferry Tour. He's only $6,100. That's the huge asking, I should say, the selling point on him, right? The reason why we want to play him is because of that distance off the tee. The reason he's looked so good on the Corn Ferry Tour. Grayson Murray, great ball striker, worth taking a few shots on. If you want to get to Joaquin Niemann or Max Homa after their absolute debacles today, might be worth a few looks. No one's going to play them. 2% ownership on guys like a Max Homa and Joaquin Niemann is embarrassing. It's disgraceful, right? I mean, if we're doing that whole process where we compare their ownership to their odds of succeeding, right? Is somebody, like a Joaquin Niemann 18 times less likely to succeed than a Will Zalatoris? The answer is no, right? But you also got to keep in mind that they looked like dog shit today. They looked like complete crap. So obviously they have to turn it around in a hurry. Hey, but maybe they do, right? So if you're playing 150 lineups, I'd be adding guys like that to your lineup. Patrick Reed fits that same type of description. Mackenzie Hughes, another guy who can get super hot with the putter. Adam Scott, another type of player like that. Towards the top of the board, we talked about guys like Keegan Bradley, Adam Hadwin. Now, if I was playing 150 lineups, I can probably squeeze these type of players into my pool. So just understand that that's going to be the process for the larger field contest. If you have 150 bullets to go with, Seamus Power, another guy I'm probably squeezing into lineups, and Denny McCarthy as well. Now, Denny McCarthy, he's one of those electric putters, so kind of similar to Sebastian Munoz, Minwoo Lee, Mark Leishman, that can get it working in a hurry. He's just a little bit more chalky, though, right? I'm at 14% ownership. So the reason why he's not in the GPP pool, at least for the 20 max pool, would just be because of that ownership number, right? We have to put like 30% of lineups into Denny McCarthy, whereas you can be a little bit less aggressive with those guys down low. So that's what we're going with. We're going to go in terms of strategy. Let's go ahead and hop through the questions. I'm trying to talk way too fast, guys. I'm going to go ahead and slow down a little bit for you. I just caught myself doing that. Max says on FanDuel, it's just based. Yeah, let's talk about that now. So I know you had that question a little bit before, Max. So if you're just talking about no placement points, right, then you almost want to completely avoid the top of the board. So that's why I wanted to wait to the end to talk about this. Guys like John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, they're still decent plays for tomorrow. It makes me like guys like Justin Thomas, guys at the bottom of the board, for example, like a Joaquin Niemann and Max Homa, a lot more. So if you're playing for round 4 showdown over there, take the guys that are these quote unquote GPP plays, the guys that I just talked about that are a little bit more risky, but on FanDuel, right, they're being dealt the same cards as everyone else. They're not getting those placement points that everyone else is. So that's what I would do for FanDuel, to be quite honest with you. Catch Me McCann says, I'll take Bradley. He's at least won a major. Yeah, that's one thing that you can say about Keegan, right? He's at least won a major PGA Championship back in the day. Adam Hadwin, right? I mean, Adam Sadwin. We call him Adam Sadwin for a reason. Adam No Win, if you want to call him that, whatever you want to call Adam Hadwin. Yeah, he's the one guy up top, him and a Matt Fitzpatrick, that I would worry about a lot. Today, I forget who was talking about it. One of the announcers was talking about how Matt Fitzpatrick does not get stage fright or something like that. Well, explain all the second place finishes or all the times where he's in contention and shits the bed then. So they can, spread whatever narrative they want on the broadcast. The fact of the matter is that, the stats for Matt Fitzpatrick on Sundays in contention are dog shit. So, I have to call out the announcer. You guys know I love calling out the announcers when they spew bullshit. That was one of the biggest things of bullshit I've seen in quite some time. Saying that Matt Fitzpatrick is a stone cold killer, a winner. Yeah, sure. Maybe when he won the USAM back in 2013, he was sure shit on the PGA Tour. I have to say that. Ray Flores says any Mansell. Bro, why are we still shitting on Wilson, dog? I love it. I love it. Richard Mansell. Thoughts on Fitz? I do not like him. Hopefully that answers your question there. Tayshawn says, guys, definitely listen to Luke on playing a lot of those 3 and 4 leg powers. I'm just a degenerate that likes a high risk, high reward player. No, that makes sense. Like I said, if you're just playing for the lottery ticket, I get it. Because early on when I did prize picks, that's what I did. But yeah, if you're looking to like actually like grind out ROI, track your results, almost treat it like a source of income, you got to be differentiating. You got to be diversifying your portfolio. So definitely agree with you there. Thank you for the shout out. If Midas Helmutz, it says, I love your gaming strategy. Never a cheerleader, but finding the plays that make sense. Yeah, I'm not just going to blindly support people now. And when I do, I make that really clear, right? I'll say, I'm playing him because I like this guy. And it's usually Jordan Spieth when I'm doing that. It's usually Justin Thomas, right? But I will preface my picks with that. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoy that. That's usually the strategy that I go with there. Mark says, I think Fitz has shook the beta male tag, seems to be really bombing it off the tee. Yeah, I mean, he hits the ball far. His shots getting off the tee is great. I worry a lot about the just mental capability, though. I mean, he's been in contention so many times. PGA Championship, right? Ended up choking that. He has like 6 top 10 finishes this year, and almost all of those, he was in the top 5 at one point. Yeah, he's certainly getting better from a skill set perspective. I just cannot really, I cannot support his mental ability. He seems like a choker, kind of similar to a Russell Henley, right? Where he's going to get in contention. He's got that consistent play, but for whatever reason, they don't have that killer instinct. And in a major championship, right? A regular PGA Tour event, you're going to get over that hump at some point. I mean, look at Tony Finau, right? Tony Finau was able to win last year at the Northern Trust. If you put Tony Finau in contention in a major championship, is a completely different game, right? So just, I think it depends on the stage as well. For smaller field events, I'd be more willing to get to Fitz. I think you might be able to shake that rust a little bit easier under that type of scenario. And Tayshawn says, I'm also a huge advocate of what Luke says often. Don't ever blindly follow. Never blindly follow anything. If anybody's just like posting pics on Twitter, posting their card on whatever website you're looking at, whatever, without giving you any sort of like information on why they're taking the picks, just assume they're picking out of a hat. There's no reason to assume that they know what they're talking about unless they have a proven track record. And even with myself, right, I tend to think that I do pretty well with this stuff. I would never recommend anyone to blindly tail, especially with these DraftKings picks, right? There's a reason why I tell you guys why I pick who I do, because I'm wrong, right? There's a lot of times where I get things wrong, like anybody. I'm not perfect. And I completely agree with you there. You never want to blindly tail anyone, even if you completely trust them, to be honest with you. Tayshawn says, is this an overall tough course or a lot of golfers just unfamiliar with it? I couldn't believe some of the round 3 performances from top tier players. It's a really tough golf course. I predicted a winning score to be like in that 5, maybe 5-6 under par range. It's looking like it's going to be like 1 to 2 under par. I'd expect scores to continue to back up. And it's not even like the weather's really causing it. It's just the setup of the golf course. It's a classical, traditional golden age design, and all of those golf courses tend to have a lot of undulation on the greens and pin locations that are borderline unfair. For the first 2 days, hole number 9 the first day was a borderline unfair pin location, and for day 2 it was hole number 6. Today, every single pin location was a borderline unfair pin location with a ton of undulation. If you had a 3 to 4 foot putt, they usually had about 4, maybe 5 balls worth of break on them. You weren't going to have a straight putt today unless you were directly uphill. So I think a lot of it had to do with the setup, because on Thursday and Friday, they still scored pretty well, right? I had a winning score after 2 days of 5 under par. Today, completely different story though. So I'd expect things to bounce, continue to be hard tomorrow. And a lot of that's going to be setup driven by the USGA setup. They want it to be difficult. At least I think so. They've shown that over the years, that's for sure. But Helmut says this course is a total monster. Even on a perfect day for golf, it smashes most. I would shoot probably 105, 106 at this golf course. That would be from my tees, not even from the tips, right? Maybe like 1 up from the tournament tees, whatever the blacks are for normal tees are. That's where I tee off on that golf course. I'd probably still shoot like 105, 106, and I'm a single digit handicap. So yeah, man, that's a hell of a test out there for sure. And you're responding to that. And Tayshawn says, where's the dono button here? That's the real question. There will be one soon enough. I just got a notification that I can set up channel memberships. So I will be doing that at some point. You guys get a lot of extra content that way. And then there's also going to be a lot of the tip button too. So I appreciate you, Chashawn. Appreciate you asking about that. It will be here eventually, I promise you. So let me go ahead and bring up Draftkings now, and we'll make a lineup together. We haven't been doing that the last few slates, but we'll do it this time. I'm not supposed to. It's apparently against the Draftkings term of use, but hey, we'll risk it for the biscuit this time, guys. If they ban me, that won't be ideal. Let's just say that. Let's go ahead and I'll bring this up here though and talk through a few lineups. So what we're going to do is we'll make a cash lineup to start. We're just going to talk about the best plays on the slate, not really worry about ownership. And then after that, we're going to make a few GPP lineups, talk through some of the more nuanced strategy when it comes to DraftKings DFS and how I'm constructing some of my lineups. So when it comes to cash, just sort it by score. Go to the top of the leaderboard and build as balanced a lineup as you can. In cash, Matt Fitzpatrick makes a ton of sense, but I'd like to get to one of these guys in the 10K range. It does kind of hamper us when it comes to salary. So let's not go crazy on it. Let's just take John Rahm, right? The cheaper of the two there. He's also starting in third place rather than fourth place. So, I like going to that. He's a little bit cheaper there. So it puts us at $7,700. Let's take Keegan Bradley there. I'm going to avoid Adam Hadwin. I'm really worried about him tomorrow. In terms of our next play, let's take Gary Woodland. I think that makes quite a bit of sense. Joel Damon, love him for tomorrow. And for our last man in, you take Patrick Rogers or Denny McCarthy. I would take Denny McCarthy, and then let's see if we can upgrade elsewhere, which we probably won't be able to. So be it. Yeah, so this would be the cash lineup. And now I would expect this cash lineup to be entered plenty tomorrow. I mean, this is going to be duplicated maybe 10, 15% of lineups when it comes to cash, but that's what you want. You want to be taking all the chalky plays you can. Matt Fitzpatrick going to be one of the highest owned plays. John Rahm, same thing with Keegan Bradley. Even guys like a Gary Woodland and Joel Damon, they're going to get that 15 to 20% number there. The lowest owned play here is going to be Denny McCarthy. And frankly, he's still going to be probably at least 10% owned tomorrow. Now, if you wanted to make this as chalky as humanly possible, see, we can't even spend up for anybody here. I guess you could swap to somebody like Hayne Buckley or Nick Hardy at $6,900. But in terms of pedigree, I'd much rather have Denny McCarthy. So this is the cash lineup I'd go with here. If you wanted to try and squeeze in somebody up top, maybe go to a Will Zalatoris rather than a Matt Fitzpatrick, you could do that too, right? You still have $200 left on the table. And you could use that money elsewhere to upgrade if you wanted to as well. So that's what we're going to go with for cash. Now let's do a GPP build. So same thing, we're going to sort it by score when doing the GPP build, but depending on what kind of contest you're in, we're going to have to think about this differently. So this is why I wanted to do this, why I think this strategy section is probably the most important part of the video every single week, is depending on the contest, we have to change the strategy. So let's assume for this first build that we're in the large field GPP, the one where it's 150K to first, right? 20, 30,000 other entries, maybe a little bit less here for round 4 showdown. And we really want to differentiate ourselves. And really our goal here is to win first place. We do not care about finishing in 10th place of the large field GPP. Well, you might care for, tomorrow, right? You might be happy that you won 10th place money. In the long term, if you want to win from a GPP standpoint, and by long term, I mean over years at a time, right? Not just 1 week at a time. You need to be winning first or second place in GPPs. Third, fourth place, while they're great at the time being, or even 10th place, like I just said, long-term, they absolutely kill your ROI. And if you end up finishing in the top 5 there, but duplicate yourself, it's even more harmful to your ROI long-term. There's a lot of simulations that have been done out there. A few of them that I can refer you to if you guys would like to see. But duplicating yourself in DFS is the equivalent of losing right around a 7 to 8% edge in a casino. That is the same equivalent of something on slot machines. So if you want to play slot machines, right, don't worry about ownership when it comes to DraftKings, because even when you're hitting, you're still going to be at a losing advantage to the field. If you play game theory, go through a lot of that process and think smart, you can remove some of that edge, right? That issue that comes up when you start to duplicate yourself. So I get asked that a question a lot because they'll be like, oh, why do we have to worry about ownership all that much? It's not really slate by slate. But long-term, it absolutely kills you if you don't worry about that type of thing. So in this large field GPP, we are going to differentiate, right? Let's take maybe Will Zalatoris will be our piece of chalk up top. Then we're going to abandon that top end range. We're not even going to look at it anymore. We're just going to try and take guys that are maybe a little bit sneakier. And In terms of sneaky plays, you guys remember the lineup I said where you could start with Will Zalatoris and kind of just live in that 8K range? I love it. Absolutely love it for the slate. Going to a Dustin Johnson, taking a Davis Riley in that lineup. You could probably even fit in somebody like a Hideki Matsuyama, put Munoz in there, and let's see, Cameron Changale. Boom. There's your winning lineup in the large field GPP tomorrow. Now, I kid, obviously, it's probably not going to win the GPP, but this type of lineup, this type of build thought process is exactly what I'm going for the last round. You're looking at leaving a little bit of salary on the table, which you don't even have to, because we're taking plays that are going to be low owned with 5 out of our 6 slots. We don't have to worry about the salary, right? Now, if we wanted to be a little bit more chalky in that contest, you can do that too, right? Like I mentioned, there's going to be lineups I have where I'm taking Will Zalatoris and Scotty Scheffler, or somebody like Will Zalatoris and John Rahm. The kicker here, and the real difference in our thought process now, is now we have 2 super chalky plays that might be 40% plus owned. We've really kind of cornered ourselves into an ownership bubble, right? We have a much higher chance of duplicating ourselves now that we have 2 pieces of mega chalk together. What we're going to have to do in this scenario is either first off, leave salary on the table, or second off, really be unique with the rest of our slots. And because we're down to $7,600, we can't really take guys like Dustin Johnson. We can't take guys like a Davis. Well, we can take Davis Riley, but we can't really fit in guys like Matsuyama realistically, right? If we went to that, be down in the 6K range, dumpster diving, not really what we're looking for here in the final round. You really got to differentiate in that mid-tier range if you're going to take 2 of these chalky pieces. So in that type of instance, right, I like to go down here to the guys maybe at like +2, like a Davis Riley, like I mentioned. Probably can fit him into the lineup. Moving down a little bit further, let's go with a cheap Thomas Pieters, right? He's going to be super low owned, sub 2-3% owned tomorrow. Taking 2 pieces of chalk and then Thomas Pieters, starting to get us there towards that unique category. We have 7,800 remaining. Let's see. Let's find somebody who's going to be a pivot like a Mark Leishman. That makes quite a bit of sense. And it leaves us with $8,400. And I don't want to be super chalky with the last pick. Even potentially leaving salary on the table is something that I'll consider. We got Brian Harman there. Oh, actually, this is perfect. So if we take Patrick Cantlay here, right? So we have the 2 pieces of chalk in here. You don't even need to leave salary on the table. Mark Leishman going to be sub 5% owned. You're looking at sub 5% owned Thomas Pieters. I mean, even a guy like Davis Riley is probably only going to be like 10 to 15% owned at max. This type of lineup should be unique in tomorrow's contest. And you can see it still has pieces of chalk we're looking for. It still has plays that are all projecting highly, and you're still using most of your salary. Just when you're taking pieces of chalk, you really have to be cognizant about your total ownership. And now, usually I set a number on that. I'll go into my optimizer. I'll set a total max ownership number. It does change from slate to slate. I would imagine on this slate, it's anywhere between like 75 to 80% is what I end up coming down on tonight. So keep that in mind when you're building your lineups, right? Understand that the contest you're in is going to change the strategy that you implement quite a bit. And now lastly, we're going to go with a small field GPP. So both of those lineups were meant for the large field stuff. Now let's talk about just like a single entry, right? 2 to 3 max sort of thing. And those contests, even though you don't want to just take all of the chalk tends to get a little bit chalkier. So if you're going to make any pivot, you really have to be convicted about it. And this is where I'm fading Matt Fitzpatrick, right? This is where I'm going to somebody like a Billy Z. Let's put Scotty Scheffler in the lineup this time. Let's change it up a little bit. I'm just going to try and take some of the chalk up here. I'm okay with it in single entries and that sort of thing. So Keegan Bradley makes a lot more sense in this type of contest. Let's see. We can be a little bit chalky about it. Take Denny McCarthy. He's going to get some ownership behind him. You can go to Gary Woodland. Makes quite a bit of sense. And at 7,500, our last man in, go to Munoz. So in this type of lineup in a single entry, we're using all of our salary. We're not worrying about it all that much. We have 3 chalky plays in it. I mean, even 4 if you're going to count Denny McCarthy. And I'm still okay with this lineup, right? If there's only 200 to 1,000 other entries, you're duplicating yourself with maybe 1 lineup at the very most. And we're not talking about $100,000 prize. That's the huge difference. If you duplicate yourself with somebody in one of these contests, so be it. These small field GPPs, you're not playing for $100,000, right? Unless you're putting in the $2,000 single entry contest, that sort of thing. You're playing for 10, 15 grand, not life-changing money, right? You're not playing for something that's going to help you put a down payment on a house or something like that. You don't have to worry about duplicating quite as much. You're not talking about a $60,000, $70,000 swing when you end up duplicating with second place. And that's really what you got to worry about when it comes to those contests. So that's the strategy for the large field or the smaller field GPPs. And obviously quite a bit different than what I'm doing with the smaller field stuff. Let's catch up on questions. Looks like we got Breadwinner Bob down there. Says, well, I've tailed Luke twice and come up. So now I'm here for the live picks. Hey, I appreciate it. We will be doing some prize pick stuff. So this is the end of the Showdown stream. Prize picks content will be dropping in the next hour. So for anybody looking for that, I'm going to be working on that as soon as we hop on out of here. But that's all I've got here for the 4th round. If you're watching this on replay, do not be shy at all to go ahead and throw any questions you have down in the chat. I'll get back to you as soon as humanly possible. But make sure you smash that like button before hopping out of here, guys. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already as well. We are going to be covering all of the golf tournaments this year. So not just major championships. I cover all of the PGA Tour, even some live golf stuff coming up here. And the live golf and DP World Tour end up coming together. We're going to be covering that for sure because they're going to have some insanely strong fields there over in Europe. So looking forward to that. Going to have a lot of content coming out here. Really looking forward here. Hopefully Scotty Scheffler can win or John Rahm. I got the outright bets on both of those guys. For 4-round stuff, I really need Keegan Bradley to play well. He's in almost all of my top lines. And same thing with Gary Woodland. So if those 4 players can go out there tomorrow and have a solid final round, might be looking at Gsluke being $100,000 richer this week. Might take down that $5 GPP. So we'll have to see about that, boys. That'd be a pretty solid end of the week for the US Open. And hopefully we can take home some prize pick stuff here on Sunday too. Just I'm excited for tomorrow. Hopefully you guys are as well. So I'll see you guys next time. Best of luck and see you guys for next week.